This week, why a well-known chicken franchise says food security is bigger than its brand. That's an interesting proposition. Comic-Con finally making its way to Africa, and the turnout was epic. We're going to take a retrospective look at the event and also find out why a newspaper article was slammed for slut and body-shaming attendees. And veteran media man Ton Vosloo on his learnings from a 60-year career in the media business. He's just written a book. It's called Across Boundaries, A Life in the Media in a Time of Change. We'll get to that in just a moment. Well, a very warm welcome to you, and we're going to start with this. Now, according to the World Wildlife Fund, 10 million tonnes of food go to waste every year in South Africa. That's around a third of the food produced annually in this country. The big chicken chain KFC, in partnership with Food Forward South Africa, says it's made a breakthrough in this regard by donating surplus chicken to non-profit organisations. The brand says it feels issues like food security in this country are bigger than any brand. That is a brave statement to make. The programme is called Harvest, and here to tell us more about it from KFC, Lauren Turnbull, a very warm welcome to you. Before we get to the initiative, give me a sense, if you can, of how this food goes to waste. How do we find ourselves in this shameful position?
So I think food waste is a very, very, very sad thing in this country when so many people in our population are actually going hungry. And I think in the QSR market, there is a lot of food waste. I know for KFC, we have internal standards and holding times for our chicken that can be served to a customer. And that in itself creates a bit of waste coming off the back end of that. And we decided that we wanted to stop landfills. There's a lot of environmental damage coming out of landfills. And we wanted to responsibly repurpose the chicken that we had left in our restaurants. And that's why we created Harvest and made it part of our business procedure.
What I'm hearing is that this is old chicken that you want to get rid of. Is the quality guaranteed, or are you just palming this off on the less fortunate?
It is completely fit for consumption. It is not old chicken. So what we do in KFC is we have a hold time for all of our chicken. So we cook our chicken, we freshly prepare it in store. It goes into a holding cabinet for a certain period of time before it can be served to customers. If it reaches that holding time, we actually take it off the shelf, and that's the chicken that we are repurposing. Obviously, based on our supply and demand, we try not to have too much chicken overheld. But when there is chicken overheld, we used to put it into a bag and put it into a landfill. And now it's about how do we freeze it and responsibly give it to
So is that what you mean by
consumers.
repurposing it?
Yes.
So it comes out the oven or comes out the warmer or whatever it is. What do you do then?
So it comes out the warmer. We will then weigh it to understand how much of the chicken is actually wasted. We will put it into a bag and we will freeze it in one of our freezers. We then have Digistics, our transport partner. They are part of the Harvest program and make it work in our business. They come and collect it in one of their cold chain trucks so that the actual food and the safety of it is not in jeopardy when it's moved from our restaurant into the truck. We then take it in the cold chain in that truck to Food Forward, who then takes it and puts it into their freezers at the depot. So that entire process is part of our business practice. It's monitored. The pack in our restaurant gets a code as to how heavy it is, when it was taken off the batch, and when it should be eaten by. So it's perfectly fit for consumption. It's just a much better process than putting it into the ground.
But there's an element of risk attached to it, because once it leaves the environment of KFC and it's put into the marketplace, you don't know when people are going to eat that. And therein surely lies the danger, or a health risk danger possibly.
So I think the main thing is that that food is tagged in terms of when it actually came out and when it should be used by. We work with Digistics to get it to Food Forward safely. Food Forward then makes sure that when they take it out of the freezers for collection by the non-profit organisations on the ground, they educate them as to when it needs to be used by based on the code that is actually on that pack. So from a consumer protection point of view, we are making sure that the chicken that is being served follows that procedure and working with our partners to make sure we educate the beneficiaries as to when they should be using it. But we do take liability in full on that chicken.
I mean, get this wrong and the brand opens itself up to all sorts of risk. Now, let me suggest this to you. It's a noble cause, and I would also suggest that all your competitors should be doing exactly the same thing. But it's not a new issue. I mean, food wastage has been a problem time immemorial. Why now? Why have you decided to embrace this now?
The most important thing is that if we get it right, we can do some really great good in our communities. We looked at our business and looked at the landscape and said, we need to do things better and we need to do things more responsibly in this space. How do we make sure that we not only get food to those that need it most, but also how do we limit what we do in the environment?
How many mouths are you feeding, and how do you measure the success rate of something like this?
Since 2015, we've given over 300,000 kilograms of surplus food to Food Forward. And what they do is they actually look at how many people that's fed. And basically, it's over 1 million meals.
You say that the issue of food wastage is bigger than the brand. I mean, that's a fairly brave thing to say. I mean, do you really mean that, or is this simply here to give the brand some good public relations mileage?
It is for us part of business practice. Our teams and our restaurants are on board. They support it. They understand the procedure and the process. And Food Forward is a beneficiary that has 600 non-profits underneath it that make sure that they get access to food. So for us, it's a full supply chain advantage in terms of how we're rolling it out. And I think many QSRs should jump on this bandwagon to make sure that it's not just a bandwagon. It's actually sustainable business practice.
All right, I sense that you're throwing down the gauntlet to your competitors, and maybe that's a good thing. Lauren Turnbull from KFC, thank you very much for joining us at Mags on Media. Coming up, social media users cry foul over an article that talked about slut and body shaming attendees at the first inaugural Comic-Con Africa event here in Gauteng. That's just ahead.